We are getting ready to read Chapter 8, The Open Road, Part 1 in your student reader. So you're going to want to have that out as we read today. So if you need to pause the video, go find your reader and open up to the table of contents. So we're going to talk today, and as we read, I want you to be thinking about the story elements, who the characters are, what the setting is, where and when the story takes place, and in this case, this chapter. And we're going to be thinking about the plot of the story. What happens at the beginning, what happens in the middle, and what happens at the end. After we've read this chapter, you're going to actually start a plot diagram to keep track of these events for the last few chapters of our reader. Open your student reader to the table of contents. What is the title of Chapter 8? It's The Open Road, Part 1. It begins on page 73. We listened to the original The Open Road chapter from the book The Wind in the Willows way back in Lesson 3. This chapter was written for your student reader. So turn to page 73 and let's begin. I want you to first check out the image and caption on page 74. Just looking at that image, what examples of personification do you see? Yeah, we see two animals sitting there talking. They're dressed in clothing, and they're sitting by the fire. Follow along as I read. And as I'm reading, I want you to think about the questions, why would an author use personification? Remember, personification is giving things that are not human characteristics, like the animals being able to sit there and have a conversation. And what characteristics do Rat and Mole list about Toad on this page? What adjectives do they use to describe him? The Open Road, Part 1. In 1908, the Scottish author Kenneth Grahame delighted readers with stories of Toad, Mole, and Rat, and their adventures in a book called The Wind in the Willows. "Won't you take me to call on Toad?" said Mole to his friend Rat. "I've heard so much about him." "Why, of course," said Rat. "Get the boat out and we'll paddle up there at once. It's never the wrong time to call on Toad. Early or late, he's always the same fellow. Always good-tempered, always glad to see you, and always sorry when you go." "He must be a very nice animal," said Mole as he got into the boat. "He is indeed the best of animals," replied Rat. "So simple and so friendly. Perhaps he's not very clever. We can't all be smart. It may be that he is both boastful and conceited. But Toady is a great friend." Boys and girls, there are lots of adjectives on this page that describe Toad. I see good-tempered. I see best. I see simple, friendly, boastful, and conceited. Let's turn to pages 75 and 76. On page 76, why does the boathouse in the image look neglected? It's this little boathouse right here. Let me get my pen. It's the boathouse in the background. It looks right here very neglected. Why do you think it looks neglected? Maybe because Toad is done with boating and he doesn't want to do it anymore. As you read page 75, think about the question, why do you think Rat would know that Toad was done with boating and Mole wouldn't know? Go ahead and read page 75 to yourself and then think about that answer. Come back when you've finished reading. I think that Rat knows Toad and Mole is meeting him for the first time. So Mole wouldn't know that Toad was finished with boating because he's never met him before. Let's turn to pages 77 and 78. As you read, think about why was Toad so excited to see Rat? And are there any other examples of personification on these pages? Go ahead and pause the video and read page 77. Toad was excited to see Rat because Toad was just about to send a boat down the river for Rat to bring him to Toad. So he's happy to see him. And some additional examples of personification might be Toad sitting in the wicker chair. He's reading a map, and he jumps up to shake the paws of Rat and Mole. So now let's talk about our characters, setting, and the plot. Who are the main characters in this chapter? If you said Rat, Mole, and Toad, you're correct. What is the setting of the chapter? This might be a little harder. The answer is the English countryside. If you said on the river or at Toad's house, that's okay too. And what happened at the beginning of this chapter? Rat and Mole went to Toad's house. On this page, you see a plot chart. You're going to download this into Notability, and we're going to continue reading the next chapters in the open road in your reader, and you're going to record the main events that happen. So in the beginning, Rat and Mole went to Toad's house. Our next chapter, you're going to listen for what happens in the middle, and then what happens in the end.